my friends. But these people are all friends. Like Rachel Maddow and Democratic Party politicians, they're friends.
Have you ever seen a video of Chuck Schumer and Stephen Colbert dancing together?
Oh God, I can't even imagine.
You need to see it.
Do we have time?
You need to see it.
Yeah.
You need to just see them dancing together. and I feel the same way about comedians that you do about journalists. You know, like you can't be friends with those people because there's going to come a time where you have to talk shit about them. Dennis Miller ran into that with George Bush. I remember being incredibly disappointed because I was a Dennis Miller fan. As a comic, he was a very good comic. And, you know, his HBO special was brilliant. Had some great shit, great jokes, great one-liners.
Absolutely.
But then he said he was going to give George Bush a pass because he's his friend and he wouldn't make fun of him. Look at this. Chuck Schumer's got the mask on, and look at Colbert, no mask, spreading pandemic viruses. Look, he's dancing, high-fiving and dancing with Chuck Schumer. What is this? Well, what kind of signaling is this?
Can you imagine Bill Hicks fucking dancing with a senator?
Jesus Christ. Well, Colbert was never really a stand-up, so, I mean, I guess he has that.
No, but I mean,
he was a comic when the Colbert Report was on. I mean, that was hilarious.
It was really good.
He was great.
Yeah,
he was great, and that show was a great takeoff of a fucking pompous, ridiculous Republican.
Exactly.
I mean, it was fucking really good. And then when you see this, you're like, wait a minute, what the fuck? What are you doing?
Right.
The fuck are you doing?
And why were you doing the other thing before? Like,
right.
was it to do this?
Well, I think what happened was, and I'm just going to guess, but I think what happened was he had this brilliant character. It was amazing on The Daily Show. Then he does the Colbert Report. It's amazing there. It's a great show, right? And then they offer him the fucking carrot. What's the carrot? The carrot's a late night talk show.
Right.
Man, the late night talk show for, I guess, kind of my generation was the thing that everybody wanted. Kimmel and Fallon and all these guys. Like, you got to host the Tonight Show, or Jimmy Kimmel's got his own show. You got your own show. You got the Letterman show. You got the this show, that show. That was the thing, man.
Right.
If you could get your own show like that, like, you were fucking in. If they offered it to you, you took it. You took it. But then to be that show guy, he has to be a different guy. So now he's not. Colbert from the show was this genius parody. Now he's just Stephen Colbert.
Right.
That's who he is.
They destroyed the essence.
Well,
by giving him something.
The best example of it was when Jon Stewart came on, and Jon Stewart was doing that bit about the lab leak theory. And Colbert is jumping in and stepping all over it.
Right.
And I'd like to see some evidence of that. Like, he's like fucking up the bit. Clearly, Stewart, who's a great comic, is in the middle of a bit.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And Colbert's trying to, he's like, you could see the panic in his eyes that this is not going along with the narrative. So he's hamstringing the bit.
Right.
Which is crazy to see.
Yeah, because his whole body is like physically mortified by the idea that he's sending off the wrong signals now.
He is the boss of this show, and this show is going to allow this wild, reckless talk about the lab leak.
You know, it's a great story that's like sort of apropos to all this is in Seymour Hersh's book, it's his memoir, Reporter. There's a story about how in the early 90s, the CIA wanted everybody to know that they had caught this. I think it was an Israeli spy, and so they called up Hersh because Hersh was the biggest, investigative reporter in the country, and they invited him in, and they said, "Look, we're going to show you all this material, right?" And they brought him into a room, and they just gave him a whole packet of stuff, right? But he couldn't, like, his entire body rebelled. He's like, I had spent my whole life getting the things. I could not be handed the things. You know what I mean? Because it's just not in his nature, right? Like to be spoon-fed, right? And like, I think that's true with comics, with any kind of journalist. Like once you start getting, handed things, then you've lost. You know what I mean? They have you at that point. and you got to get out of that habit. You know, it's like, or you can't cross that line.
You can't cross that line. You can't. But if you want to be on a talk show, you have to cross that line. There's no other way you get on that show. You can't get on that show and have some real counterculture narrative that is not approved and sanctioned, and you spit it out there on NBC for the masses.
When was the last talk show that had a counterculture? I mean, Letterman in the 80s, maybe a little
Letterman.
bit?
Yeah, Letterman. Well, Letterman was rebellious. I don't know if he was counterculture, but he was certainly rebellious, and certainly the favorite of the people that weren't taking it all seriously. The people that wanted the tongue-in-cheek jabs at the celebrities, and whereas like Jay Leno was letting everybody on, and oh, you're hilarious. Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
Right.
There was no attacking. Letterman would, mock you, and you were he was in on the joke.
I remember when, my father used to work for NBC, and when the tech workers, NABIT, the union, when they went on strike, and NBC brought in a bunch of scabs to cross the picket line and do all their work for them. Letterman used to get them to screw up, basically. Like, in other words, the cameras would go back and forth. So he was taking a dig at management, which was kind of cool. Like, I thought that was an interesting.
Did he do
thing.
it on purpose and tell them to fuck up?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
That is funny. That is funny. Well, he was a very smart guy.
Yeah.
And a funny guy, like the funniest of all those. If you go back and look at like the guys who have hosted talk shows and were really funny at it, he's the best.
Yeah.
I think he's the best. I think he's the best talk show host of all time.
I love that he was a weatherman before he did the talk show. I think he didn't get in trouble for predicting hailstones the size of canned hams.
Did he? That sounds like a Letterman
I hope
thing
that's
to
a true
say.
story. I don't know.
Yeah. He's it's interesting because his Netflix thing wasn't the same. It seemed it just didn't feel the same.
Well, I mean,